Hello my knowledge-seeking nymphs. Today I'm going to do a concealer tutorial. This is basically going to be focusing on under-eye concealers, but I'm going to actually discuss a few topics. First of all, what are concealers? What are the different types of under-eye concealers? What are different under-eye application tools that I can use? And a demo on how to apply. Concealers actually serve a few purposes. They can be used for correcting darkness or redness in the skin, in which case they usually come in lavender, yellow, and green shades. Green is usually for redness, whereas yellow is for bluish and purplish discoloration. They can be used for highlighting and contouring, but today we are talking mostly about concealers for your under eye. Now, unless you have very extreme dark circles under the eye, you can get away with just using a under eye concealer that is 1 to 2 shades lighter than your skin color, or I should say your foundation, in case your foundation changes the color of your skin. But you want to stick to the same skin tone when using concealers. So for instance, if you are warm toned, then a yellow based concealer. If you are cool toned, then a pink based concealer. And there are lots of tests out there online to find out what your skin tone is, so I'm going to post a link to a few of those at the bottom in case you don't already know what your skin tone is. What are the different types of the concealers then? The most common types are liquid and cream concealers, and a less common type would be a cream to powder finish concealer. So what are liquid concealers? They usually come in a little tube with a brush applicator. Now I would use the applicator to get the concealer under your eyes, but I would not use it to blend. And it comes in different finishes. The coverage is buildable for that, meaning you can put as many layers as you want for as much coverage as you need. And I would recommend liquid concealers for normal or combination skin. Cream concealers, which usually come in those little pots, or they come in stick form, or as I'll show you later, I actually have a concealer palette. Again, with the stick, I would use the stick to apply the foundation, but I would not use it to blend. I would use your application tools, which I'm going to talk about later. Cream concealers are good for very dry to dry skin, or even combination skin. The cream texture will bring moisture to your face if you have very dry skin. And these need to be set with powder because they have the tendency to slip around your face, just meaning that they won't stay in place and they might just come off altogether. The coverage is usually medium to heavy, even with just one coat. Cream to powder concealers are not as common, but they're really good for oily skin. So while you're applying them, they kind of work as a cream concealer, but they dry to powdered. They usually come in a compact, and again, I would use the pad that comes with the compact to apply it to your face, but not use it to blend. And since they dry to a powder, you don't really need extra finishing powder on top of it, so that's another good thing that comes from powder concealers, cream to powder. So what do you use to blend concealer then? Because I'm saying you can't use all this stuff to blend concealer. Well, what you can use are either your fingers, a brush, or a sponge. When you're doing your finger, I'm not trying to flip you off, you would use your ring finger because it's the weakest finger, and what you don't want to do is press it too hard into the skin. You want it to sit on top of the skin. If you were to use your index finger, which is your strongest finger, it would really press it in there and probably wouldn't even show up. Or you can use your pinky when you're trying to get into the little corners. And you want to use a light bouncing motion if you're going to be using your fingers. Sponges. You would get the sponge damp, so you want to wring out the extra water. And again, you're using that blending motion or that bouncing motion. Or you can use like a roll, pat, roll, pat, whatever you want to call it. And again, you can use the really skinny side, again in those little corners. You can use the big side if you're just trying to blend out the outer edges. And last but not least, concealer brushes. These are good. I like to use concealer brushes because you can use them to apply And you can also use them to blend, but sometimes I use a combination of a brush and a finger, not this finger. Alright, so, and oh, another thing, this is really good for cream concealers. It would be good for liquid concealers too, but brushes are usually, flat brushes like this are usually really good for cream because it sits on top of the brush and it's really easy to just pat it on like that. The brush is not going to absorb it. You need, of course, your concealer. I'm going to use this concealer palette. This is just a brandless, nameless concealer that I got off Amazon. And if you don't need to use a lot of concealers, you can just get an individual pot, or like I said, if you're using liquid, you can get the little tube. But I actually use quite a few of these colors, so it's really helpful for me just to have this palette. And then of course, you want to have your applicators ready. So either a sponge or a brush, and get your fingers ready. And then to set it, you're going to want to use a powder brush and your powder. What I use is Boots. And I feel embarrassed showing it because I've lost the cap. But I just put some tinfoil on there. Probably not the most sanitary, but it's mine. Alright, so I've already gone ahead and put on my foundation because I believe that you should put on your concealer after you've already done your foundation. So I have my foundation, and I've also just colored my eyebrows, nothing fancy, just so they would match my hair. And I actually use one of the concealers from this palette to do, it matches my hair color, so I use that for my eyebrows. I'm going to explain to you the method that most people use, and it's an upside down triangle method to apply the foundation. So if you had your tube, you would be using the applicator just to draw like a triangle and then filling it in. Now let me explain why we do the triangle. It's really to create an illusion, because really all makeup is for an illusion, right? So the illusion that you're creating here is brightening this part of the face, and it really helps if you're also going to go on to contouring. And the idea behind highlighting and contouring is you're highlighting the parts of the face that you want to bring forward and contouring the places that you want to appear sunken or farther away from the eye. So like when I say sunken, like a cheekbone. Like you want to apply your dark color here to make your cheekbones appear, more refined and sunken in. So if you think about it, the triangle shape that you're going to be using ends right here, right above your cheekbone. So it creates a good guide for you on where you're going to put your contour. And so if you're trying to make your cheekbones appear more defined, you're obviously not going to want to highlight all that area. So also it's good for the nose contouring and highlighting because the triangle goes like this, right? So the triangle is going to be highlighting this part of the nose, and then you're going to be putting a contour color here and a highlight color in the middle to make your nose appear slimmer. Because again, this is coming away from the eye, this is going forward, so this appears slimmer in general. And of course the triangle would go down here because you don't want to put too much cream or liquid into your laugh lines because you'll end up with creases. So that's the basic explanation as to why you do an upside down triangle. So I'm going to go ahead. So again, I'm using my brush, and I'm using a color that's lighter than my skin color, but it's still warm toned because my face is warm toned, even though my neck appears red, so it looks like I might be cool tone. It doesn't have to be like a perfect triangle. If anything, it's more like curved right here, so actually I might have gone too far. You don't want to go out too far because when you blend it, you're going to be blending out those corners anyways. And you want to go right up. So I'm actually not putting that much on. Some people put on a lot of concealer. So there's my triangle. You can see it's pretty defined. I don't want to keep it like this. So I'm going to use my sponge, and sorry, not my sponge, my brush. And on the other side, I'll do, and I'm just going to go to my mirror here. On the other side, I'll try it with my finger. And make sure you guys can see what I'm doing. So I'm smoothing out those edges so it doesn't appear so obvious. And also with the sponge, people think that you have to do brush strokes, but you can also do kind of like a stippling, almost like you would with a sponge. So I'm actually going to take my fingers here and just, because it's going a little too far down for my taste. Notice I like taking it up into the corner of the eye, because that also creates another illusion that your eyes are wider, so it's like wider from the corners out. And it's also a really good base for your, if you do a little highlighter in the inner corner of your eye. So I'm going to say that looks pretty good. It only looks a little off because I haven't done the other side. Sometimes I don't do like that perfect triangle first, and then fill it in. I just kind of, I remember that that's the shape that I'm trying to go for as I'm applying it. Alright, so I'm going to blend the outside just a little bit more. Okay, this is how I set my under eye concealer. I would take the powder, put it on the back of your hand, or I have it on my palette here. Then I would take your ring finger, and I would really set that foundation, or that concealer, sorry. Sometimes, when you're doing your foundation, and you're going to do concealer too, it's kind of like, the foundation isn't really the most important. I think the concealer gives you more coverage than a foundation. And the foundation really makes your face just one color, whereas concealer can bring dimension to your face and kind of put color back into your face, without all the natural splotchiness or maybe dark circles. So I actually find the concealer is what's doing most of the work. That's just what I find. So now what I'm going to do is take my powder brush and brush off the excess powder. So basically, that's how you apply your under eye concealer.